In the evolving landscape of the music industry, the debate between signing with an independent label versus a major record label is more relevant than ever. So today I thought it'd be a good idea to dissect the advantages and disadvantages of each to help you navigate the path in the music business. Now, before I start, I want to make it very clear that there's no wrong or right choice for this. It depends on who you are as an artist, how you work, how much money you're trying to make, who's trying to sign you, and what your relationship with that person is. To put this into context, you have to understand how much the music industry has changed in the past few years. The digital revolution has democratized music production, allowing artists to record and distribute their music without traditional gatekeepers. This means that the barrier to entry to the music industry is extremely low, and the impact of this is significant because first of all, it means that major record labels now don't gatekeep who can release music and who can't, especially professional sounding music now that everyone can access things like Logic or Ableton at a very low price. But also it means that the competition is extremely high because all these talented people that usually couldn't get it because they didn't have luck or the right environment now can start releasing music and going viral. So on one hand, you don't need record labels because you can make the music by yourself. On the other hand, having big bucks that market your music and try and surface it above all the other noise might be useful. So again, it's just something to keep in mind. It's led to a saturated market, which makes it challenging for artists to stand out, but it's also making it much more accessible for anyone who wants to be a musician and just start on their own. So the first thing we have to analyze is the dominance of major record labels. Despite the rise of independent artists, despite the democratization of music, major labels still dominate the charts. And by the way, the major record labels, for those who don't know, are Sony, Universal Music, and Warner Music. In fact, 99% of the top 100 songs are backed by the big three, along with many of their subsidiaries, because another thing that they do is they just swallow any upcoming record label that has any sort of market competition. So even if you look at some artists that don't say they're signed under those three, it's extremely likely that the top 100 artists on Spotify are signed to one of the subsidiaries of one of these three record companies. Now, does this mean that you cannot make money if you're not signed to the big three? No. However, it is likely that you're not going to have a top 100 hit. Why? There's three reasons why. One is because there is survivorship bias in this. One is because you have a much larger marketing bucket when you're signed to a major label. They have so much money to spend, and crucially, they have so much money to lose because they've signed superstars that are making their money back over and over and over again, which means they can throw hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars into every artist that they sign, hoping that one of them turns into a superstar and recoups for the rest of them. So not only do they have money to spend, they have money to lose. The second reason is because there is a lot of collusion and a very mafia-esque relationship between the streaming services and the record labels. And this is something that not a lot of people are going to talk about, but it's extremely true. There's a lot of payola going on. For those who don't know, payola is just when owners of music, whether it's record labels or publishers or the artists themselves, pay radio stations or streaming services to have their song pushed more than another song. Now, Spotify doesn't outwardly allow payments because that's bribery and illegal, but they found a loophole where they say to large record labels, you can choose to earn less money from your royalties and we'll push your song more, which is essentially the same thing. You're basically paying Spotify through taking less of a cut through your streams, and then they push you more and push you to more people. So there's a very tight relationship between the record labels and Spotify because they both depend on each other a lot. And this is something you have to keep in mind if one of your dreams is to have a top 100 song. It's very difficult to do it without the major labels. However, you can do it through going viral and good social media marketing. Now, the second thing I need you to consider is financial considerations. Financially, the shift from physical album sales to streaming has significantly impacted artist revenue. Before, you could make most of your revenue through selling CDs. However, now streaming makes a very small percentage of your earnings. While superstars may earn more than ever because they dominate streaming, the average artist actually faces decrease in earnings due to lower profitability of streaming services, which means if you're an independent artist, you have to make sure that you are doing things like performing live shows, doing social media marketing, doing brand deals, and trying to expand your income sources because streaming is not going to cut it, especially if you're not making it to the top 100, which as we saw, 99% of those songs are backed by major labels. So let's go into the comparison. Independent versus major record labels, pros and cons. Independent labels offer artists much more creative control and a higher percentage of the revenue. They're known for artist-friendly contracts and a focus on niche markets. However, they lack the extensive distribution networks and marketing power of their major counterparts. So again, something to consider. Independent labels are going to give you much more control, not because they want to, maybe some of them want to, but it's mainly because that's the way they compete with major labels. Major labels usually don't really give you that much control and make your contract as unfriendly as possible, and then you have to negotiate it back from that. Independent labels are much more flexible with that and will give you a higher revenue percentage. However, you're likely to make less money in the short term with them unless you're very smart about how you conduct your business. Major labels, on the other hand, with their vast resources, can provide significant support for promotion, marketing, and distribution. They can amplify an artist's reach, but often at the cost of creative freedom and smaller revenue share due to more business-oriented contracts. And again, what I want to highlight right now is because of the democratization of music, there is very little difference between independent and major record labels outside of money and freedom, because distribution is not that important anymore since CDs barely sell now, and streaming is the main way things are consumed, and you can put music on streaming services yourself without a label. So the only real differences between the independent label and the major label is. The major label has more money and more marketing power, but are likely going to take more control, more rights, and more money from you. And the independent label will give you more creativity, much more of a seat at the table, much friendlier contracts, but it's likely not going to have as much of a marketing budget, as much of a legal budget, or any other type of budget that you want to really push if you're looking at this from a business perspective. So in conclusion, choosing between an independent or major label depends on your career goals, your values, and the level of control you want to maintain. It's a decision that can shape your career trajectory and one that deserves careful consideration. If you're considering making a decision like this and you want some guidance in some aspect of your music career, from marketing to creative strategies, I actually offer a consulting service down in the description below that can offer some tailored support. So if you want a one-on-one conversation about what's right for you, make sure to click it below. And if you are on the path to wanting to be signed but don't know exactly what record labels want, I've actually made a whole video on what record labels are looking for from you when trying to sign you, which you can watch right now.